In a nondescript suburban town, nestled among rows of identical houses and winding streets, there stood a supermarket. Its name, Savmart, emblazoned in faded letters across its weathered facade, hinted at the mundane nature of its existence. This was not a place of adventure or excitement. It was a realm of routine, where the daily chore of grocery shopping took on a ritualistic quality. On a particularly uneventful Tuesday morning, Emily found herself pushing a squeaky cart through the fluorescent lit aisles of Savmart. Clad in a worn out cardigan and sensible shoes, she methodically checked items off her list: milk, eggs, bread, and the like. Each item was selected with precision, placed in the cart with care, and then promptly forgotten as she moved on to the next. As Emily wandered the aisles, her mind wandered as well, drifting into a sea of mundane thoughts and reflections. She pondered the peculiarities of her neighbors, the state of her garden, and the mysterious disappearance of her favorite pair of socks. Lost in thought, she barely noticed the passing minutes as she roamed from one end of the store to the other, her cart slowly filling with groceries. Meanwhile, across the aisle, a young man named Tim was engaged in a similarly unremarkable task. With earbuds firmly in place and a list clutched in his hand, he navigated the aisles with the precision of a seasoned shopper. His thoughts, however, were far from the mundane sights and sounds of the supermarket. Tim was a dreamer. You see, a young man with grand aspirations and lofty goals. As he filled his cart with cans of soup and boxes of cereal, his mind soared to far-off lands and distant adventures. He imagined himself scaling mountains, traversing deserts, and braving untold dangers in pursuit of glory and fortune. But alas, reality had a way of grounding even the most fanciful dreams. As Tim rounded the corner into the frozen food section, he was jolted back to the present by the sight of a familiar face. It was Emily, her cart piled high with groceries, and her expression one of quiet resignation. "Good morning, Emily," Tim said, offering a polite nod as he passed by. "Good morning, Tim," she replied, her voice tinged with a hint of weariness. "Lovely weather we're having, isn't it?" Tim nodded in agreement, though the weather outside was anything but lovely. Gray clouds hung low in the sky, threatening rain, and a chilly breeze swept through the parking lot, sending shivers down Tim's spine. As Tim made his way through the aisles, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. It was as if something was lurking just beyond the edges of his consciousness, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. He glanced around nervously, half expecting to see some lurking figure watching him from the shadows. But of course, there was nothing there. Just the same familiar sights and sounds of the supermarket, the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant rumble of carts rolling across linoleum floors. With a shake of his head, Tim dismissed his foolish thoughts and returned his attention to his shopping. There were groceries to be bought, after all, and he had no time for fanciful flights of fancy. And so, the mundane dance of grocery shopping continued, each shopper lost in their own thoughts and reflections as they wandered the aisles of Savmart. And as the hours passed and the sun sank lower in the sky, the supermarket remained unchanged, a bastion of routine in an ever-changing world. But amidst the monotony of everyday life, there lingered a sense of possibility, a faint glimmer of something more. For even in the most mundane of places, there are stories waiting to be told, adventures waiting to be had, and mysteries waiting to be solved. And perhaps, just perhaps, the next time you find yourself wandering the aisles of your local supermarket, you might pause for a moment and wonder what secrets lie hidden beneath the surface of the mundane. As Emily and Tim continued their separate journeys through Savmart, unaware of each other's existence beyond a passing acknowledgement, fate was quietly weaving its threads, preparing to intertwine their lives in an unexpected way. As Tim reached the end of the cereal aisle, he paused to glance at his list once more, mentally ticking off the last few items. It was then that he noticed something peculiar out of the corner of his eye, a flash of movement, too quick to be caught by the casual observer. Curiosity piqued, Tim turned his head, scanning the nearby shelves for any sign of what he had seen. And there, nestled among the rows of brightly colored cereal boxes, he spotted a small, furry creature darting between the packages, its tiny form barely visible against the backdrop of cardboard and plastic. Intrigued, Tim took a step closer, his eyes narrowing as he tried to get a better look. The creature seemed to sense his presence and froze, its beady eyes meeting his with a mixture of fear and defiance. Hello there, Tim said softly, crouching down to the creature's level. What are you doing here all alone? The creature regarded him warily for a moment before darting forward, disappearing into the darkness beneath the shelves. Tim reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing against something soft and furry before it slipped away, leaving him with nothing but a faint sense of wonder. Meanwhile, on the other side of the store, Emily was navigating her way through the produce section, carefully selecting fruits and vegetables with practiced efficiency. Her mind was still lost in a haze of mundane thoughts, her surroundings fading into the background as she focused on the task at hand. But then, just as she reached for a particularly ripe avocado, she felt a strange sensation, a tingling at the back of her neck, a whisper of something unseen. She glanced around, searching for the source of the feeling, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Shaking her head, Emily dismissed the sensation as nothing more than a trick of her imagination. After all, there was no room for fanciful notions in the orderly world of Savmart. Yet, as she continued on her way, a nagging feeling lingered in the back of her mind, a sense that something was amiss, and though she couldn't quite put her finger on it, she couldn't shake the feeling that her mundane trip to the supermarket was about to take an unexpected turn. As Emily and Tim moved through the aisles, each unaware of the other's encounter with the mysterious creatures that seemed to inhabit the shadows of Savmart, a subtle shift was occurring, a ripple in the fabric of their reality, heralding the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Little did they know, their paths were about to converge in a way neither of them could have anticipated, setting into motion a chain of events that would challenge their perceptions of the world around them and lead them on a journey beyond the confines of the ordinary. But for now, they remained blissfully unaware, their minds preoccupied with the mundane tasks of grocery shopping, their hearts unknowingly poised on the brink of adventure. And as they pushed their carts through the aisles of Savmart, the faintest hint of excitement tingled in the air, promising that anything was possible in this most unlikely of places. As Emily and Tim continued their separate journeys through the aisles of Savmart, a series of seemingly innocuous events began to unfold, each one a thread in the tapestry of fate that was weaving itself around them. As Tim made his way to the checkout lanes, his mind still buzzing with the memory of the mysterious creature he had glimpsed among the cereal boxes, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the encounter than met the eye. He found himself casting furtive glances over his shoulder, half expecting to catch another glimpse of the elusive creature. Meanwhile, Emily had reached the dairy section, her cart now laden with groceries, her thoughts drifting back to the peculiar sensation she had experienced in the produce aisle. Try as she might, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, something lurking just beyond the edges of her vision. And then, just as she was about to turn the corner into the next aisle, Emily caught sight of something out of the corner of her eye, a flicker of movement, a shadow darting between the shelves. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest, her senses on high alert. Cautiously, Emily edged closer, her eyes scanning the shelves for any sign of what she had seen. And there, nestled among the rows of canned goods, she spotted it, a small, furry creature, its eyes wide with fear as it stared back at her. For a moment, Emily and the creature regarded each other in silence, each unsure of what to do next. And then, with a sudden burst of energy, the creature dashed forward, disappearing into the darkness beneath the shelves. Emily hesitated for a moment, torn between the impulse to follow the creature and the rational voice in her mind urging her to leave well enough alone. But curiosity won out in the end, and she found herself crouching down to peer into the darkness, her heart racing with anticipation. What she saw there took her breath away, a hidden world, teeming with life and possibility, stretching out before her like a secret waiting to be discovered. And in that moment, Emily knew that her life would never be the same again. Meanwhile, Tim had reached the checkout lanes, his mind still reeling from the encounter with the mysterious creature. As he unloaded his groceries onto the conveyor belt, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that there was something lurking just out of sight, waiting to reveal itself. And then, as he glanced up at the cashier, he saw it, a flicker of movement behind the counter, a shadow darting between the shelves. His heart leaped into his throat, his breath catching in his chest as he realized what he had seen. Without a word, Tim abandoned his groceries and dashed towards the source of the movement, his mind racing with 1,000 questions. What was hiding in the shadows? What secrets did Savmart hold? And most importantly, what did it all mean? As he reached the counter, Tim found himself face to face with the source of the movement, a small, furry creature, its eyes wide with fear as it stared back at him. And in that moment, as their eyes met across the expanse of the checkout lane, Tim knew that his life would never be the same again. Together, Emily and Tim stood on the threshold of a new adventure, their paths converging in the most unlikely of places. And as they gazed into the hidden depths of Sav Mart, they knew that they were about to embark on a journey beyond their wildest dreams, a journey into the unknown, where anything was possible and nothing was as it seemed.